Yeah. Okay, good. So at 6 o'clock on June 20th, we'll call this select board meeting to order. The first thing that we're going to do tonight is to listen to a presentation from Wiley Goodman, Berkshire Regional Planning. She has a commitment and a hard out at, I think, 6:20. So
It's at 6:30 is, yeah, 6:30.
okay, so Wiley, we'll let you go first before we do any of our other business.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Some Andrew Krause, I know, some of the rest of you, I know you by name. So my name is Wiley Goodman. I'm the Senior Economic Development Planner for the Berkshire Regional Planning Commission. I've been with the organization about 2 years and first worked with them for the most part on their CEDS report, the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy Report, which is a 5-year look ahead at economic conditions in the Berkshires and makes recommendations for what the region can do to be more economically competitive and ensure that everyone in the Berkshires can succeed in what we all know, especially now, is a really changing economic environment. And this presentation in some ways is not, it was not intended to be a follow-on to the CEDS, but in a lot of ways it kind of is, or in part it is, because it talks about technology. And I think we all know, if you've watched the news, listened to the news, and have heard about AI and ChatGPT and all the other changes that are happening in the world around technology, you understand that the world is changing rapidly. And having access to the internet, being digitally literate, having digital skills, being able to join a digital workforce, and starting with our young people, making sure that they're educated in a way that prepares them for that future is going to be really instrumental. So the Biden administration has is sending lots of. Are you still seeing my PowerPoint?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. It disappeared for me, so sorry there. So there's millions and billions of dollars coming down the pike to communities across the country through something called the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, and specifically a program called BEAD, Broadband Equity Access and Deployment, which is going to provide $42.45 billion to expand high-speed internet access by funding planning, infrastructure, deployment, and adoption in all 50 states. The other really important legislation to know about is the Digital Equity Act, which again, just like I was just saying, provides digital skills training, improves online accessibility, and empowers rural communities. That's all of you. And with a real focus on what they call identified or covered populations. So those are people who are low income, people who with disabilities, that includes seniors, which is a lot of our county and region, includes veterans, includes folks who are without housing or in transitional housing, people who are formerly incarcerated, people who are English language learners or have low literacy skills. So this isn't just about like, getting high-speed internet into the second home of someone who is in the financial services sector. Not that we don't care about that person, not that we don't want them to be successful too, but the real people that we're trying to reach in this work are the people who have been unserved or underserved. So Massachusetts will be receiving about, is that a 1 million or 1 billion? I'm going to say it's 1 million, right? It's late in the day. To fund various activities, including developing. So this is just the first level. Sorry, this is not, there's the billions of dollars that are coming down the pike. And the first step of it is this money, which is what we're involved in right now, tangentially, okay? So Massachusetts is receiving about $1 million to fund various activities, including developing a statewide digital equity plan to close the digital equity gap, hiring digital equity inclusion specialists to create and execute on that digital equity strategy, working with a consortium of higher education institutions, and engaging with the National Digital Inclusion Alliance to seek advice and best practices. For the BEAD allocation, again, Massachusetts is going to receive about $5 million. Again, for various activities like a 5-year action plan, again, to close the broadband internet availability gap. Again, identifying these unserved and underserved locations. Asset mapping, which is super important, and we're going to be doing a lot of that in the coming months. Conducting community surveys, understanding barriers to internet adoption like affordability. And again, just kind of doing these Massachusetts specific digital needs assessments. And they're awarding sub-grant funding to the Mass Tech and the Mass Broadband Institute, which is how we come to me and BRPC, and then of course your town. So just to back up a little bit, these are just some key terms that we use in this world that we're now in. So things like digital access is the ability to fully participate in a digital society, includes access to tools and technologies such as the internet and computers that allow people for full participation. Digital equity, which is a condition in which all individuals and communities have the information technology capacity needed for full participation in society, democracy, and the economy. And it affects things like employment, lifelong learning, and access to essential services like telehealth. Digital literacy, again, you can give somebody a computer, but that doesn't mean they know how to use it. If you've ever been to a class at your local library, asking, this helps people learn how to, chat with their family over Zoom, or have multiple screens opened on their laptop, or cut and paste photographs. Those are skills that a lot of people, they didn't grow up with those skills, and there's no reason we should expect them to have it. But those are skills that they would really enhance their quality of life. And again, especially for people in rural communities who are more isolated, sometimes who have transportation issues, things like getting to a doctor or applying for a job or learning remotely, as we all know that kids had to do. Digital literacy is really critical. And then digital inclusion are activities necessary to ensure all individuals and communities, including the most disadvantaged, have access to and use of information and communication technologies. So those are things like making sure your website is accessible to ADA accessible to people who are visually impaired or hearing impaired. Making sure, again, that people have the assistive technologies they might need to use the internet and so forth. So what is BRPC doing around digital equity, digital access? Well, the first thing we're doing is we were selected by the Mass Tech and the Mass Broadband Institute. We applied to this program to provide municipal digital equity planning consulting services to any town in Berkshire County who requested, and they made their own application, their separate application, to apply to do either a digital equity plan, which will take a number of months, or a digital equity charrette, which is a very short, condensed way of doing planning where you get people together in a room just for like a half day or a full day, and everybody kind of brainstorms, big pieces of paper and stuff like that, but it's very short and intense. We were first selected as a consultant, and then towns across, we did a lot of outreach to every single town to say, hey, this is available to you. We recommend you take advantage of it, because if Berkshire County, and you all know this, you don't need me to repeat it, when Berkshire County is not represented in statewide plans, we lose out on millions and billions of dollars that could benefit our residents. So like the census, we want to be counted in this digital equity work. So I'm pleased to say that we were selected by Pittsfield. That's our first city, the biggest one. That's where we're currently engaged. We were selected by Clarksburg, very tiny town, probably one of the tiniest, so on the total other end of the spectrum. And then right in the middle, we were selected by Stockbridge and West Stockbridge and Sheffield and Lenox and Lee and Great Barrington, 6 towns that each applied separately, that MBI said, you know what, guys, you're all kind of the same size, you're all kind of in the same general location, you probably have not exactly the same, but similar digital equity needs. Why don't we get you all together into a joint application and have BRPC work with you all together? And so that's what we're going to be doing. We just submitted our scope of work and budget. It was a long process to get there, and some of that was me, to be perfectly honest, because I had never done a digital equity plan before. It's a new concept for a lot of regional planning agencies, frankly. So there was a lot of back and forth. Again, there's 6 different municipalities to coordinate with, make sure we're all on the same page, make sure we all want the same thing and have the same vision of kind of how this might play out. But that has been submitted now, yay. And I am hoping that within, I'm going to say 2 to 3 weeks, MBI comes back with a, yep, here's your signed contract, sign on the dotted line, you're good to go. In which case I can see us potentially starting this work in August with the 6 communities. And I can tell you that the benefit of going second is that we're learning a lot of lessons in Pittsfield. So you guys will get the benefit of, like, we're going to make some mistakes in Pittsfield probably, and we're going to hopefully, repair from those mistakes. But by the time we get to you, we're going to get the process is going to be a lot smoother. So that's our first work is digital equity planning. The second phase is digital equity partnerships. Now I say phase, but it's actually, interestingly, kind of going to be happening a little bit in parallel. There's an organization called Bay State Health. They're part of the Western Mass Alliance for Digital Equity. They're based, I believe, in Springfield. They have contracted with BRPC to essentially be their liaison for digital partnerships work in the county. And that's things like public space. That's like the pedal to the metal. Like the planning is the big meta sort of, we need to get the lay of the land. We need to understand what people need and want. We need to understand what the challenges are. Partnerships is like, okay, thank you for that information, or kind of like even in parallel with you gathering that information, we want to make sure that we start sooner than later to get digital literacy classes, to get devices, to get people signed up for the ACP program. Some of you probably have already received an email from me because this last week, June 14th to 21st, the federal government was doing a big push around ACP sign up, Affordable Connectivity Program, which for people who are low income, if they're on SNAP, if they're on other federal type SSI, other kinds of programs like that, they could lower their internet bills to as low as $30 a month. And a lot of people who are eligible don't even know it exists and they haven't signed up. It can be a bit complicated where the federal government is doing things to try to make it as to get the kinks out of the system. But as a first step, we're trying to, we signed up to participate in this, big ACP outreach effort and have been sharing that with communities to encourage them to put it on their social media, e-newsletters, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the partnerships work. So like I said, phase 1, digital equity planning. Again, we're going to be looking at things like how available is the internet, how affordable, who has devices, who doesn't, what skills do people have and what do they need. As an example, we know that there's a lot of folks who are in housing, homeless or in housing transition. They don't have a laptop. They're not walking the streets with a computer in their backpack. They've just got a phone. So how is that person going to apply for a job or get their healthcare services or sign up for SNAP or whatever it is, if they're just working on a tiny little device and they don't know where the free Wi-Fi is in the community and they don't have a plan with Spectrum every month. So like we're trying to like get a sense of who those people are, where they reside, what can we do to help get them, again, devices that could be free or low cost to them. And really more importantly, getting them the skills that they need to use the internet in a meaningful way. So again, this is the first phase these deliverable, first deliverable that we have on our plate is these digital equity plans, starting with Pittsfield. This is just kind of a bit of a template for what is expected of us, what the Mass Tech and MBI and the federal government wants to see from every consultant across the entire Commonwealth who's working on these. They should have an executive summary, a vision statement. We should show alignment with existing efforts to improve outcomes. So like the 5 Cable Advisory Board, if you were a part of that effort, which I don't think you are, but we'll be, finding out what the 5 Cable Advisory Board is doing. If you have a master plan that talks it all about digital, making sure fast broadband is available to your residents. If you have the school district has any reports that say, oh, our kids need to be prepared for the 21st century and they need digital skills, we're going to say, you know, this is, our report is, our plan rather, excuse me, is echoing things that have been shared by other people in other reports. And that way, again, when we come with our handout to the federal government or the MBI to say, hey, we need X number of laptop computers, or we need X number of millions of dollars to create free downtown Wi-Fi, or we need X number of teachers to do digital equity classes for our seniors. We're not just going to point to our plan. We're going to say, see, it's in 3 other reports that all say we all want the same thing. So we're backing up what we're asking for with a lot of evidence. Again, strategic actions to bridge the digital divide. We're going to be helping you find funding opportunities. That's part of our required deliverable, is that we are doing research on your behalf to identify potential funding sources, you know, federal, state, and otherwise that could be, could help some of the things you want, and key recommendations. So again, just, yeah.
Nobody said anything. There's noise in the hallway.
Oh, sorry. So this is just a map again of where we're engaged now. The in red are some of the pending communities. The 4 high fiber towns actually want to work with us. So it's not, again, just about having high-speed internet, because they have high-speed internet already, but they know that, again, they have people who are not using their high-speed internet to its full capacity, or who need skills, or who can't afford it. They've opted out because they just don't want to pay the price. We still want to reach those people. And then you can see in green, there are some communities in North County that are working with a different consultant. So every town had the option to either work with us or to work with a private consultant, and those towns chose to work with a private consultant, and that's fine. Again, partnerships work, I kind of already talked about that, so I don't think I'll. The other piece of this partnerships work is public, providing Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi access in public housing. I don't think there's public housing in West Stockbridge, but for the communities that do have it, that's going to be a really interesting component of this, to look into what the logistics are and the feasibility and the costs, again, and then how we would fund providing free Wi-Fi in public to public housing residents. Again, already talked about this. One of the first things, though, that again, your participation will be really, really helpful with. So we can't do it alone at BRPC. I mean, it's the staff that's working on this is me, Andy McKeever, who's a community planner. We have a digital equity intern who's with us for the summer from UMass Amherst. And then in the fall, in September, we will have for a year, which is very exciting, a Lead for America fellow. That person is like AmeriCorps. If you've heard of AmeriCorps, they're coming to us through AmeriCorps. So, you know, at any given time, about 3 to 4 of us, and sorry, Mark Malloy, who's also doing GIS mapping. So we're a small team, which means that we need a lot of help to get the word out about the kind of data that we need to collect, starting with surveys, which are actually available now. So there's some things that you could actually be doing before we even have a scope of work and budget approved from MBI. I mean, I can send you guys today, after this call, a link to MBI's survey, which is online, and anyone could start to fill it out. You don't need my involvement to start doing that. The second thing that we're going to start working on with communities is something called asset mapping, where, again, we're going to be doing probably the first scan. We're basically having to scan the environment in every town and say, okay, who is offering digital skills classes? Who is loaning out computers? Who is giving out free Wi-Fi hotspots? And we know a lot of those are the usual suspects: the library, the Council on Aging, again, maybe the public school, maybe there's some social service agencies in your community. So we're going to go out, we're going to scan the environment, we're going to gather at least a sort of rough overview of, like, hey, West Stockbridge, it's late in the day. Here's what we think is going on in your town around digital equity. Is this accurate? and hope, and then people will come back to us and go, oh, you know, that program, I know you found it on our website. It says that we give out free laptops, you know, for 24 hours or whatever it is. Yeah, we actually, the funding ran out for that program. We used to do that, but the funding ran out. So now we don't anymore. And we go, oh, that's interesting. Good to know that you used to do it and the funding ran out. Well, tell us when it was active, how many people participated? How many laptops did you give out? You know, who was it impacting? That would go in our report. And we can say, you know, there was this great program, but oh, well, the funding ran out. So now no one can benefit. So what we need is X thousands, millions of dollars to restart that program, et cetera. So that's what asset mapping is. Recently, a number of senior councils on aging did apply together to a grant opportunity that was presented by the Executive Office of Elder Affairs. It was called Enhancing Literacy for Older Adults. I have to be honest with you, I don't know if West Stockbridge Council on Aging did participate in this or not.
We submitted to Richmond because we share a council on aging with them.
Oh, perfect, great. So yes, so we're all waiting to hear about this one. This is going to be a really great first step in sort of activating in a really tangible way some skill building for older adults. So that's a really exciting project. And I think Berkshire County did a great job again of really, again, doing that kind of outreach, getting COAs on board to apply. And I think we have stand a very strong chance of getting some really nice funding. And that's all I have. And just questions.
Thank you very much. It's very informative and needed, certainly. I actually had a couple, not necessarily associated questions, but the first was when you mentioned the accessibility of the town website and other.
Yeah.
Does the state of Massachusetts have a version or an analog of Section 508? That's basically the rule that covers accessibility, digital accessibility.
Yeah. Right. Do you mean like, do they provide like guidance to you if you want to update your website to make sure it's ADA accessible, like things like recommendations for like how to change it, that kind of thing?
Is it required in Mass General Law?
Yes,
the Section 508 is a very hard one.
Right. Yeah, so I'm not sure what's the question?
Well, I'm just wondering, we're governed as a municipality by Mass General Law. My question is, does Mass General Law have digital accessibility requirements for town websites and other?
I don't know the answer to that, but I would, certainly as part of our work, I think we will be evaluating people's websites and pointing out places that they may not be accessible and things they could do to be more accessible. And yeah.
I guess my point is that from my experience, I work in the federal government, and it can be very expensive to bring, certainly if it's to the level of Section 508 in US code.
Yeah,
It
interesting.
can be very expensive and very difficult to get to that.
I'll have to do, it's a great, I appreciate your bringing it to my attention. It's something I'd have to look in. I know a lot of towns, I don't know what your back end is for your website. If it's a lot of towns use like Revise, I think it's called, or Civics Plus, or some of the back ends. And I would guess that those sort of like have, built into them, like in their templates, sort of ways to, with what font you choose or the, the color schemes and other kinds of things, making, I know when I first started at BRPC, I was going town by town to each website to look and see how accessible they were. And you're right that some are definitely not. Some are better than others. Some have ways to translate their websites into other languages. Some websites have, what do you call it? Like if you were to hover over an image, you would see a caption, right? So definitely a lot of websites are not compliant. I don't know, there's a Municipal Managers Association, and Marie maybe can speak more better to that than I can, about whether they provide any guidance to towns on how to become more compliant. I mean, certainly, I guess let's be honest. I mean, the state is not, like pointing their finger at if they were on top of it, right? They would have already come to you or any other town and said, hey, your website's not compliant. You need to like get that in shape right now. And they're not. I don't know whose responsibility that falls to.
In the federal government, even a PDF, if we're working with documents that are moving to the web, they have to be worked over to be compliant with Section 508. So even this, you have some descriptive stuff in the background.
Yeah.
So it can be, what I guess my only point is that might be an area to assess from the standpoint of funding, how much it might cost.
Yes. No, that's a great, absolutely. I think, and I'll bring that to MBI, because that's something again that is, statewide. Again, you Berkshire County is not, I'm sure, alone in not having all its town websites be, up to the federal standard around accessibility. So let me reach out to them with that question and sort of see if they've done any research into the both what it, some estimates of cost, as well as potential funding sources, right, to help the town make those improvements.
Okay. And then my second question, not related, was probably a decade ago or so. We were talking about fiber and last mile and providing broadband that way. In this town, a number of towns in South County have essentially municipal internet through, they have their own, municipal
Right, sure.
process of providing fiber. They strung fiber out to homes. Here we are under contract with Spectrum, and that's of course a cost. Has MBI looked at is there any further plan for expanding fiber, the fiber network?
Well, again, I think that there is potential for funding, certainly through the BEAD Act for that kind of like making, again, a Wi-Fi network in downtown or something like that. Again, from what I've heard from towns, I don't want to speak for other people, is that folks are not necessarily on board with taking on municipal fiber, becoming an ISP or even working with a company like Wired West or some of the other smaller providers that have been working with towns to like Alfred or I think it's in Washington and so forth, these high fiber towns where they took on.
They were taking deposits here in West Stockbridge. We had a town meeting, we voted through. I never got my $49 back from Wired West. So, I mean, I'm just thinking, it was a missed opportunity in my mind.
Yeah, so there's
it's an attractive thing if you can say that your community is wired for fiber across the board, whether it's a company or not. I know Spectrum's going to stay confident.
right. I need to learn more about this whole back story with Wired West, because I know there's a lot of really disillusioned people as a result of that experiment or pilot, whatever that was. And I need to know more about it to understand, kind of where things went south that have led to clear antagonism or not antagonism, that's not the word, but understandable reluctance to go down that road again, which makes sense. So what are the other options? And I think that's what we're again, the BEAD funding certainly can potentially help. I know, again, I think downtown Pittsfield they've wired their downtown with free Wi-Fi. So there's ways to do it that don't involve Spectrum, I guess, is what I'm saying, but that are not as massive as taking on town-wide, becoming an ISP yourself or something. If that makes sense.
Thank you.
Sure.
Being mindful of Wiley's deadline, if anybody else has another quick question, ask her, and otherwise, it was a really informative presentation, Wiley. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Look forward to working with you. Okay, take care. Bye.
Digital copy of
Now,
the
can you
presentation.
email that to me, the presentation you just did?
Yeah, and emailed it to Andrew, I believe. Did I, or I'll email it. I'll make sure I email it again.
Thank
Okay.
you.
But Andrew, if you could check your email, I'm pretty sure just before the meeting, I emailed it to you to make sure that somebody had it, just in case there were any technical issues. So if you find it then and can share it with others, that would be great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
That's why- Thank you.
Marie, Andrew, Peter, not Peter, Andrew, Kathleen, and myself. I'll make sure everybody has it.
Okay. All right. Take care. Bye.
Thanks. So I'm gonna just ask if, I know, Bill, you mentioned when you came in that you weren't feeling well. Would you like me to rearrange the schedule a little bit and put you up next?
Whatever works for you.
Does anybody have any objection to that?
I have no.
Okay, all right. So, on the agenda is the, class 2, 3, and taxi licenses for Bill Guy. So when we met when the renewal was up at the end of the year, I think, we talked about extending the license for a 6-month period, and Bill, you said that there were things that you were working on that you'd want to report into us about in 6 months, and hopefully we can continue the licensing process. Do you have some updates for us?
Could you repeat that again? I had a little difficulty hearing you.
Who's this? So when we met in December, when your license was up for renewal, we had talked about the fact that we'd extend it for 6 months. Pending, you said to me, we talked at the time about the fact that you were doing some work, that you knew that there were some changes that you needed to make to maintain compliance with your licensing. And that in 6 months, you'd have an update for us. So that's what I'm asking if you want to report your number.
Okay, first of all, have there been any complaints about my taxi license? Let's start with that. Have there been any complaints, written or verbal, regarding my taxi license?
Not to my knowledge, Marie. You?
No.
Okay,
All right.
and why was that license not renewed?
I think it was just a part of the package of licenses, and perhaps it was an oversight.
Okay, has there ever been a complaint about my class 2 dealer's license? Which is to sell used cars. Has there ever been a complaint or any issue, any violations or anything like that?
I think that there have been concerns raised in general. I don't know that we've had them in writing. But I've certainly had people ask about compliance in general.
With my class 2 license, I want to deal with the specific licenses. Has there ever been any complaint or any violations on that class 2 license?
I wouldn't say, and I'll ask my
Okay.
other members that anyone has ever spelled out a difference between the
Okay.
two. It's just a matter of the whole operation.
Okay. I also have a class 3 dealer's license, which allows me to dismantle vehicles and recycle vehicles and all that. Has there been a specific complaint or any violations against that license?
My answer would be the same.
Excuse me?
My answer would be the same. I don't think that people who've spoken to me about it are talking about one versus the other. It's just a general understanding that they're.
When we when we spoke, it wasn't, what we spoke about wasn't addressed at a select board meeting. It was addressed between you and I. I was in the town hall on another matter, and all of a sudden, we're having this conversation about my licenses. It's, according to my recollection, about I believe 3 years ago, there was a vote of, there was an article on a warrant regarding oversight and all of that of the class 2 and class 3 dealers licenses in town. And that got voted down. There was a tremendous amount of oversight that was on that ballot question, and that got voted down. I guess the first thing I want to ask is, how did we get here? Nobody ever came to me with a complaint. The select board never came to me with a complaint. It's just all of a sudden, you and I are having a conversation, and you inform me that my licenses were basically on the chopping block. I don't really understand how my taxi license has any bearing on this situation whatsoever. And I just, the way this whole thing was handled was basically a violation of my right to due process, because it was never addressed at a select board meeting. Also, it was a violation of my civil rights. All of a sudden, out of the blue, for absolutely no good cause that I was presented with, they're only going to be renewed for 6 months. And my taxi license has no bearing on this situation. My used car dealer's license has no bearing on this situation. I have several other businesses that I operate there. I have a towing business, which involves towing in vehicles. I'm licensed by the Department of Public Utilities by the state. It's not a town license. I've had that license for 40 years. That also involves vehicles, and it has nothing to do with class 2 or 3 licenses. I also have an auto repair facility, which doesn't require a town license. 45 years ago, I filed a business certificate with the town, and that to this day still gives me the right to operate that business. That involves vehicles. It involves storage of vehicles. The towing operation involves the storage of vehicles. The situation, it's a lot more complex than just my class 3 license or the other licenses that were held back. I've operated the class 3 dealer's license has been held by my family and me for 78 years. We've been in business for 78 years. The license was first issued in 1945. You do the math, that's 78 years. All of a sudden, this came out of nowhere about roughly 3.5 weeks before the renewals were about to, I paid for licenses, had no clue that this was coming. It was on nobody's radar screen. And then all of a sudden, boom, I get hit with, we're not going to renew the licenses. And there was no discussion, no prior discussion about this. As a matter of fact, when you sprung it on me, you basically said that, I apologize for is springing this like this, I meant to deal with it quite a while earlier, and it wasn't a select board discussion. It was a discussion between you and I, that the other members of the select board were not involved. It was you and I. That's a violation of my right to due process. I was entitled, if I was in violation of something, I was entitled to have a hearing before the select board, not a hearing in front of you. Which is exactly what we had. I had a hearing in front of you, and I got basically informed of what was going to happen. And I informed you at that time that I had some health problems, and shortly after we had the conversation, a few days later, my health problems escalated. I'm not going to blame them on anybody, but I think the stress of all this didn't do me any good. I spent a month in the hospital, and I'm lucky I'm sitting here today. I have a real problem with the way this was handled. And I have a real problem with the way my licenses were held back, and 2 licenses involved in this holdback have absolutely nothing to do with the discussion we had. I have a farm which has a lot of equipment and vehicles. I have probably 40 pieces of farm equipment. Those are not regulated by any of these licenses. I have a construction business which has probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 50 pieces of heavy equipment, which are on that property also, along with the farm equipment. And then none of that stuff is regulated by these licenses. We're talking about a very small amount of equipment and vehicles, the heavy trucks and things like that, that actually fall into the jurisdiction of this license. In answer to your question, as far as what has been done since we spoke, just bear with me for a second. Since our conversation, after I got out of the hospital and was able to function to some degree, I've kicked out 3 30-yard roll-off containers of scrap tires, which was something that I was basically part of my ongoing master plan. The cost of doing that, the cost of the disposal of those tires was about $5,500. I've shipped out 4 30-yard roll-off containers of plastic, fiberglass, wood debris, demolition material, and miscellaneous scrap that was accumulated from what we do. The cost of that was about $4,800. And any of this stuff that I'm telling you, I can document. You know, I've got receipts. I could have brought a ton of paperwork in with me. I didn't feel that was necessary tonight, but I can back up everything I'm telling you, just for the record. I've shipped out about 60 cubic yards of scrap tin for recycling, which basically is stuff that was accumulated from the processing the cars and things like that. I've shipped out about 2/3 of my inventory of cars, which we recycle and sell parts off of, which has made a big dent in my bottom line, my income, because basically I got rid of about 2/3 of what I feed myself with. A lot of it was material that I felt it was time to go. But it's still it was on the portion of the property which is licensed for this operation. And I had a right to do it, but I've gotten rid of about 2/3 of my inventory. I have very little in the way of vehicles left that actually fall under the license. I spoke to you in the course of the conversation that you and I had. We discussed some vehicles that were on the property that weren't owned by me. They were owned by some other family members. Those vehicles were up near the front of the property. They have been relocated in the area that is covered by the license, and that area has been dramatically cleaned up. There were a couple of heavy trucks that were out in that area. There was one large trailer which was parked out next to the road, which was registered, but that's been moved, and most of that area where those vehicles that were out in front of my repair shop near the road, that area has been cleaned up, and we're in the process of regrading, seeding, and mulching that area. I recycled and scrapped 5 large trucks which were on the property to better utilize the space that I have to work with. So I probably, at this point, I probably expended somewhere in the neighborhood of $50,000 to $60,000 in cleaning up that area that we discussed. But again, I've gone over and above. I've done everything that I can do for this year. And I've gone way over and above any discussion that we had. My question is, there's a lot of, let me back up a minute. There's a lot of gray areas, which I mentioned. I have a farm, which has a lot of equipment, which is in various places on the property. I have the construction business, which has about 45 pieces of heavy equipment. There are bulldozers, loaders, trucks, trailers, lots of small support equipment. There's a small grader. There's a bunch of rollers for compacting material. There's a screening plant for screening materials, screening loam, things like that. Again, 45, maybe 50 pieces. I don't have an accurate count, but it's a lot. That's all there on the property. Again, I have a towing operation, which involves towing in vehicles. And from time to time, we charge storage. From time to time, I get stuck with vehicles, which, you know, I've got 3 or 4 vehicles there now that have been there quite a while that it's very difficult to get rid of. And, you know, that's a byproduct of my towing business, which again is a state licensed business. It's not regulated by the town. Case in point, the town has right now, I think there's 33 vehicles on Ricky's Auto Body's old property, which the police department's been working on for 2 years to try and get paperwork to get rid of them, and they're still sitting there. So it's not a problem that's unique to me. And again, I've gone over and above what any discussion we had, but I'm not quite sure why we're here.
Billy, can I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
Number one, it sounds like you put a lot of effort into taking care of a lot of things through your master plan. Am I correct in that assumption? If you're
Yes,
saying anything that's wrong, stop me interrupting. And it sounds like you possibly have a master plan proceeding forward. is there any problem that you foresee? If you have a master plan. To work with someone, i.e. like Marie, every 4 months, every 3 months, and bring this stuff in to say, Marie, I took care of this part of the master plan, check it off, check it off, check it off. So that we're not sitting here and you sitting there in angst, feeling you're on trial, which you're not. So that this can proceed smoothly in the future and this thing can be rectified properly so that it will satisfy you and everybody else, any other complainants out there. Does that make sense to you?
The world is in a constant state of change.
Right.
And anything you do in life, the needs of the community around you change. The needs of your business change. And if you don't adapt and adjust to the economics and everything else involved, you don't survive very long. We've survived for 78 years. I've been involved with, I was involved with running the town for about 35 years. I served on a bunch of different boards. I've been over backwards to try and do the right thing no matter what the situation was. And I never had a personal agenda.
Okay.
When, as the economy changes and the world changes and the people around us change, you've got to be able to adapt. And what I'm doing right now is going through basically an adaptation, trying to, a lot of my needs have changed. A lot of things that I do there have changed. It's not easy to get help anymore. Nobody wants to work. Nobody wants to do anything other than ride the wave, the current wave. So,
Okay.
and the recycling business has changed a lot. I'll be the first to admit that. So what I've done over the last 5 months is basically part of that adaptation. I've got a long way to go. As I said, I've done as much as I can afford to do this year. We've been there for a long time. And nothing that we have to do is going to happen overnight. It's not economically feasible. And given the health problems that I just went through, my abilities are physically, my abilities are limited a little bit. Mentally, that isn't a problem. I just I'm trying to adapt. I'm trying to adapt to the changing environment here in the town, and I'm also trying to adapt to my current situation. My plan is to continue the cleanup and the restructuring of what we do.
Okay, can you freeze that right there? I just want to question, because you're not,
Sure.
if your plan is, and it sounds like a good plan so far, if you're proceeding along those lines, and you can work with Marie, and there's this, and you stub your toe somewhere in that, oh, I haven't been able to get work. As long as it's on file, as long as somebody knows the problems or the issues that are going along, this whole thing doesn't have to happen, and therefore we can present to the community, we can present to the board, hey, this is what's happening, this is what's doing. You've already presented it, $50,000, $60,000 of your own money trying to clean up. So all I'm saying is to make it a little bit easier for you, avoiding the angst, avoiding the situation, could you work with, even though you don't get part of the master plan approved and you have a master plan, hey, Marie, I'm in here 3 months, this is what I'm doing. So at least it's on file, at least it's on record, at least somebody knows what you're going on. So you have some backup and this issue doesn't necessarily quote on.
Well, can I just interject real quick, Andy?
Sure.
I don't believe people coming for a license are required to submit a plan. I also believe that people who appear in front of this board for a license are entitled to have the people who are making allegations or claims present. Every other permitting process that I've attended as a member of this board, there have been people, if they oppose the license and have specific complaints, they have to be here. It's on the agenda, it's posted, that's the point. The complaints can't come by proxy from the chair. And in terms of the personal conversation between the chair in Massachusetts, small government, is not the mayor. The chair is one of 3. And anything that has to do with licensing should come in front of the board. The 3 of us. And I think it's shameful what's gone on. Billy's right, due process has been violated. Everyone in this town should have the right to see the person or persons that have claims, charges, allegations against their business. It's not right.
Okay, can I say something? Am I allowed to say something? In defense of Billy, we are looking to get to an end result. But Billy Kai does not have this angst.
The end result is somebody making a motion to give Billy 6 months of his license. That's it.
All right, you want to make a motion?
I make a motion, we approve the 3 licenses from Billy Kai for 6 months until his next time up, and I hope to God, the next time it's 12.
I'll second that.
I agree.
We have discussion. All in favor? Your license, all 3 of them are good through the end of the year.
Excuse me?
All 3 of the licenses have been approved through the end of the year.
With all that said, I lived in this town my whole life. My family's been here since the Mayflower landed. Matter of fact, my great grandfather, so a whole bunch of greats, came on the Mayflower, and he was the leader of the Plymouth Colony, William Bradford. And his son was the first governor of Massachusetts. My family's been here a while. I've always been over backwards to do the right thing, and I think the way that this situation was handled right from the beginning, it's just, I've never been in this situation like this, where there's been some opposition to what I do over the years. A lot of select boards have come and gone. I went through one situation in particular where one of the selectmen got up in front of in a regular town meeting and said the best way to deal with people like me were to eliminate me. And I asked him, I said, does that mean killing me? And he said, yeah, necessary. That guy, name was Jordan Woodcock, he was a selectman here in West Stockton. And he made that statement in an open meeting, and was quoted in the Berkshire Eagle. So I've been through a lot. I think that this situation was handled incredibly badly. And my taxi license, there's never been a complaint or a violation against it ever. And it shouldn't have been included in this mess. My class 2 dealer's license, there's never been a complaint or a violation against it ever. And it shouldn't have been included in this.
So Bill, I'm just gonna interrupt you because we do need to get to the rest of the meeting. I have a little bit of a different version. I don't think we need to relitigate this. The way how it happened, the conversations in the order that they happened in. I happen to recall speaking to you as one person, not as Andy has suggested, on the behalf of the whole board. But that said, you got your license for 6 months. We've just renewed it for the following 6 months. And I think we can take it up again, whoever the board is composed of at the time that it's up for renewal again at the end of the year. You did say to me that you had intended to do things over the course of the spring and into the summer, which it is now. And it sounds like you've made a valiant effort at doing that. So thank you and congratulations.
I've made a monumental effort
Right.
without anybody putting a gun to my head. I did it because it was on my list of things to do. We had the discussion. My life changed dramatically shortly after we had that discussion. And I just, the whole point with going over that again, and I just wanted to reiterate, the whole thing was handled really bad. And I don't think that you personally had the power or the authority to do what you did to me. And I have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with changing the dynamics of what I do up there. I don't have a problem with cleaning up the property a little bit because it's due. And I've made, as I said, I've made a monumental effort to do that. But there's a right way and a wrong way to do things. And this was, but from your perspective, the way you handled it, and the way a portion of the select board handled it, I don't think I was treated fairly. And that's, I mean, you may think differently of it, but I don't think I was treated fairly.
Well, I'm sorry that you feel that way. I felt that, I really just don't, we could get into a discussion that could go on until midnight. So I think we should be all happy that we've resolved you getting your license through the end of the year. And we'll move on.
God bless.
Okay. Is
So,
this,
with
when
that
it
said,
comes,
I'd
when it
like
comes
to-
time,
Bring up, Kate has an update for us.
I was not quite finished,
Oh, I'm sorry.
so.
I thought you said all right.
Is this going to be an issue in 6 months when I go to renew my licenses again?
I don't even know if I'll be sitting on this board in 6 months.
I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's something that I went back and did some research and looked just to try to be as informed as I could about the history of this with other select boards. And I found something that was written that there were, a lot of criteria that had been spelled out at some point in time, but not to you specifically, but just these types of licenses. I haven't seen it. I was going to ask Marie, what is on record with the town. But just, we'd have to look into it going forward. But I think we all, everyone was grateful that you did what you did. You've made great strides. And I think that's good.
A little history on the town of West Stockbridge.
Billy, excuse me, we have other agendas.
I understand that, but
Respect,
you brought me in here.
what?
You brought me in here.
Respectfully so, make it 3 minutes, please. We have a long,
I'll make this very quick.
thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Little bit of history in the town of West Stockbridge. I've seen a lot of boards come and go. I've been involved in town politics forever. And a lot of times people do things because they have a personal agenda. And I've seen over the years, I've dealt with so many personal agendas and so many problems where I've seen myself and other people attacked because somebody had an axe to grind. And then all of a sudden, when they discover that they can't do what they want to do, they either lay down and die and become very ineffective, or they plug up the system and they just screw things up until they get voted out. And I've seen this over and over and over again. The one thing about me and my business, it's a constant. We've been here a long time. I've been here a long time, and I've tried to do as much good in the town as I possibly could on all the boards, all the different positions I've had. And I've never, ever, ever seen anything like this, where I just got stomped on for no reason.
We'll try not to happen again.
What's that?
I say we'll all aggregately, Andy, myself, Andy, and Kathleen, we'll try not to happen again.
Okay,
That's a problem.
I appreciate that. I appreciate your input. Kathleen, thank you for your vote of confidence.
And thank you,
And-
Bill.
Yeah, Bill. I'll just,
Thank
for the record, I made a motion last time to make it a 12-month license. It died for a lack of sense.
I understand. I understand. I appreciate your effort. I appreciate all the input and all that, and hopefully we don't have to go through this again. I'll do my best to hold up my end of the bargain, and I hope that the board does the same.
Perfect.
God
Okay,
bless
thanks,
you.
Bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Have a good night.
Thanks. You too.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I know you had expected to be gone by now, so we'll move you up. The organic agenda.
Sure, you guys want me to podium? Is that easier?
That way they, if
Yeah.
whoever we have on Zoom can see it.
Hi, everybody. I am here for 3 different parks and recreation reasons. The first 2 are about Card Pond, so I'm gonna start there. The Card Pond season opens this weekend, weather permitting, hopefully. But we have 2 exciting things. One is that our lifeguard is back for a 2nd season, which is very exciting.
great.
We are looking forward to welcoming Max Lindner back, the same hours as last year, which will be Thursday through Sunday from 11 to 4, which seemed to function best for the community. We tested out a few different hours, so I'm hoping that the select board will join me in being very excited about that. Additionally, we are looking to add a Card Pond groundskeeper this year. Now, the idea behind that is we're hoping that by having a 7-day per week presence at Card Pond, Max Lindner, the lifeguard, being 4 days a week, and the groundskeeper being 3. It'll keep the beach in its best possible condition, and discourage not only the goose population, but also anyone who might be inclined to destructive behaviors at the beach. I know I personally am looking forward to scrubbing less graffiti, hopefully, because we have more of a presence there. So I'd like to propose to the select board. I wish that he could have been here with me tonight, but he's at his baseball banquet, which is very exciting. But Dominic Paludi, who I think everyone here probably knows, he's Nora Janeri's son. They live across the street from Card Pond. Very, very tall and nice young man. He will hopefully be our Card Pond groundskeeper as long as the board here agrees. He'll be doing things such as opening and closing the beach each day at roughly 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. That includes things like putting out the umbrellas, which we keep safely stowed away at night, and then bringing them in at the end of the day, raking the beach sand, cleaning off the dock when necessary, and doing a visual check for things such as graffiti and litter, and obviously chasing geese. So I'm looking for, select board, permission and blessing on both the lifeguard and the groundskeeper this year.
Okay, before they, I just want to add that we did advertise this position.
Yes.
As
thank you.
well as the cemetery is having 2 people work 2 days a week to repair headstones, and we did 1 ad. And we did advertise, just so you know.
Yes.
I
In
don't
the
want you to
shopper
think we
guide.
just picked him out of the hat, but we.
We like process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
These positions, excuse me, are well within our budget.
that's within there, but each committee, it's
Yes.
their budget, and that's what they made sure they had money to
Got
pay
it.
these people.
Absolutely.
And it was advertised, like I said, so it's all above board.
Yes.
So do we need a motion? Or just a?
You could just.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just bless.
Have my-
Oh, good. Blessings across the board.
Please.
Ooh, that was good.
Above board.
Blessings across the back.
Blessing
I like what you did with it.
Wonderful. So weather permitting, if you would like to stop down to Card Pond on Sunday, we will be, fingers crossed, having our Card Pond opening party from 11 to 1. Max will be there. Dom will probably visit, but not in an official capacity, but you could also be in that. Wonderful. The other reason I'm here is entirely unrelated to Card Pond. And that is, I know there's been probably scuttlebutt about the potential West Oxford Dog Park for a long time now. We finally currently have a group of 6 people from town who have volunteered to be on a dog park subcommittee. And we are seeking select board approval to appoint those people to what I would like to call an exploratory subcommittee. They would first and foremost be responsible for establishing facts and figures to determine if a dog park is even a truly viable option in West Oxbridge. And if so, what direction would come next? They would be looking at the potential sites, the potential costs, how that would work, who would clean up, how would a dog park function, things like that. And no steps would be taken without coming back here. We know there would be significant cost associated, and that would not be coming from the Parks and Recreation budget. That would be entirely up to the dog park subcommittee to search for funding on their own. But we are looking for permission to found that subcommittee.
So what we've learned, Kate, through the Complete Streets process is that we learned very late in the game that there was no ill intent on anyone's part, but we put together a group of people for that committee specifically because they, one person was for finance, one person was from planning, et cetera, et cetera. And in speaking with town council about that committee, he advised us that we had been, in fact, sort of sanctioned an informal ad hoc committee when an official committee needed to be formed
Oh, okay.
and appointed by the select board if it has to do with anything that's organizational or will have financial impact on the town or policy on the town, that committee needs to be formed, needs to abide by open meeting laws, needs to post their meetings,
Okay.
needs to post minutes. That he also advised that when you form a committee like that, really every person should have a function. There needs to be a reason for people to be there. You should establish what the number of people is. Is it better to have, 5 people rather than 6, so you have a tie-breaking vote if
Mhm.
necessary? But it really needs to be, and it seems like something that you could get together and do very simply. But as we thought with Complete Streets, but
Not.
he advised that was not in fact the case. So that's what I would say about that. And then if you wanted to maybe get that on the agenda, so that we could look at it officially, then we could look at that in 2 weeks.
So, okay, tell me what you would want me to bring to you then.
I think, number one, obviously the names.
Yep.
The names of the people.
Mhm.
And their, you know, I don't know what suggested roles these people would have, whether somebody would be either secretary and hosting the meetings and taking minutes, whether somebody would be responsible for any kind of budgetary information, but anyone who is involved should have somewhat of a specific function. We didn't really go into that. It was a deep dive for town council, not realizing this was gonna come up.
No, that's
Right
really
away.
fine.
Um,
I,
I suggest a charter. A charter or a charge for the committees is very
okay.
clear direction from this body as to
Mhm.
what's required.
So, okay, so I guess I'm thinking that in 2 weeks, it's probably not going to.
There isn't a meeting in 2 weeks, it's 3 weeks. 'cause
3 weeks
one
anyway,
week is
okay.
4th
Okay.
of July, so we
Okay.
skipped over that.
The-
so.
I know an inception date, you know, for your committee to start and the date that you hope to have your work completed was one of the things the town council mentioned. Marie, did you
I'm sorry.
catch anything
didn't
that
hear
I
what you
didn't
said.
say? It's for a committee to have like an inception date, they're gonna start and then they want their work to finish by a certain date. As much structure as we can.
Yeah,
Okay,
really,
so,
it's like a mission and like a mission statement, really,
Okay.
for the board to know what they're actually gonna be doing.
all right, that makes sense. So I guess my tricky part here
It's a
is
lot.
that, yeah, no, is that Parks and Recreation, we were asked to sort of be the housing body, the sort of the umbrella for the dog park. Parks and Recreation doesn't actually have anything to do with the dog park. Unless it is absolutely necessary, none of us are actually going to be on a dog park committee. And I don't know what they envision their mission statement being. Or what roles those involved would have. But they were worried about having a meeting to even figure out any of their things like that without knowing if they could have a meeting, I guess, is
Right.
sort of where we're at. Yeah, so I'm not really sure where to go from here. There's very little direction from those who are interested, except for them coming forward and saying, hey, we're interested.
Is there someone kind of leading the charge who we might put in touch with Marie to just make sure that it's done properly and legally?
I can see if someone would like to be leading the charge. So far, they're a separate group of folks who have separately offered volunteers. So not sure, but I can look into that. If that would be the next step, then we could totally proceed that way.
I think so.
I feel like since the Parks Committee really doesn't want to have anything to do with this, that she can just tell whoever's interested
Yeah.
to come before you and they can try to figure it out themselves with the board. Why should the Caitlin
Yeah,
have to try
yeah.
to figure it out?
No, well, that's what I'm
Yeah.
suggesting, that
Yeah.
whoever. is-
Yes, just tell them to
There's an old adage,
tell them to contact.
he who wants it owns it. And whoever wants to own it, come in front of us,
Okay.
make a presentation. We don't fight,
Mhm.
we'll give advice, make a direction.
And whoever it is, tell them to contact me so I can put them on the agenda.
Perfect. All right. That sounds
All right.
honestly simple enough. I will move forward with that. Thank you all.
Thanks, Kate.
Awesome.
And thank you for your patience and getting pushed back and everything.
Anytime.
Okay, so let's. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from June 5th and the revised April 24th.
I'd like to have it as separate. please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Approve the minutes from June 5th.
I approve.
I think somebody needs to make a motion.
Oh, thank you.
I
I'd like
was,
to make a motion to approve the minutes.
okay, second,
I'll abstain.
all in favor,
Aye.
and I'm an aye.
Abstention. It's on a sick bed.
Okay, so the minutes from June 5th are approved. The minutes from April 24th that were revised. Do I have a motion to approve them?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from April 24th.
And I'll second. Your discussion? No? Okay, all in favor? I'm an aye. The minutes from April 24th are approved. Citizen speak, we don't have a big
I'm Mark.
population of people. We have Mark. And who's,
That's it. I don't think he wants to talk.
okay, who's on the other, who's,
That's, the panelists are us. That's us.
oh, okay.
That's him.
Okay, and so nothing for citizen speak. We have a discussion and a vote to approve the appointments. There are many people who take a long time to read them all out. I guess, what I'd ask is if anybody has an objection to anybody being, serving in any of these positions, then we could call that out, or if we'd like to go through them all individually, we could do that too.
No
Take
objection.
time. Excuse me?
Said no objection.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so then I'll make a motion to approve the list of select board appointed town officers, all paid and non-paid. A second,
Second.
all in favor,
Aye.
then we approve all of the appointed town officers. The next up is the appointment of the Complete Streets Advisory Committee. That there had been a request that we speak with town council to ask about the legality of having someone who's involved with a lawsuit in the town, serving as a committee member or as a volunteer. Town council advises that there was no legal reason that somebody could not. What I'd like to make a suggestion, I have had a chance to speak with other members of the committee. It's been a committee that's been working together for a number of years, actually. And from all reports, the work is done. The 15 projects have been submitted to the state. And the state has basically said that any one of them would be appropriate. And then the committee itself, I would like to reappoint the committee as it stands and then allow the committee to make a determination about what other needs that they might have in terms of an advisor or what type of public outreach they would want to do. So that committee.
Make a motion to appoint the committee.
So that's Kurt Wilton, Andy Potter, Dana Bixby, Joe Roy, Joan Perry, and Frank Landsberger. I'll second. Any discussion?
No,
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So we have that group of 6 people serving as an official now, Complete Streets Advisory Committee.
Marie, can you schedule a meeting and so we have all the organization meeting?
Call it reorganization.
Yep, gotta do that. The way these things-
Okay, select board speak. Anything from you, Andy?
Yeah, I just, actually in the theme of what we've just been discussing with the dog park committee, possibly. Of the Complete Streets Advisory Committee, definitely. Have we ever looked at the vision committee in the context of your guidance that you received from town council? How are they appointed? How do they govern themselves?
It's a
Do they-
really long history.
I understand.
In fact, at one point, we discovered, it had happened, I think, a couple of administrations ago. No one's exactly sure about, like, I think it was when Kurt was on the select board that they originally signed, then things were on hold. And then at one point, Roger Kavanaugh became involved. Marie was working on it a little bit separately, and Roger Kavanaugh tried to hand it off to me, and we realized that there were like 3, it was being worked on independently. by different people with different contacts with Berkshire Regional Planning. So we just looked at who kind of the stakeholders would be. And it was somewhat organic. I don't remember it ever really even officially happened, but it was those volunteered and came to us and said, Joe Roy's Merchants and Frank's on Finance and your select board liaison. I think you were the only
I think he's
official.
Andy,
Yeah,
not me.
Right.
Oh, we're talking about complete streets.
Complete Streets.
Oh, okay. I thought
Isn't
they
that
were-
what you asked
No, I talked about the vision committee.
he said the vision committee.
about? Oh,
Yes,
oh, I-
My concern about the vision committee is that it's not following, we've established what I see as precedent, based on
Yeah.
town council
Right.
advice. And I don't see the vision committee as being fitting in with what we just told Kate and what we just did with complete streets.
There, and that too, there was a meeting a long time ago, a town-wide meeting, and it was decided to move ahead, and this is what I recall. I was not involved at the inception of the vision committee, although I did serve on it at one point. And there was a mission statement, I think, and I asked Joe Roy for it not that long ago, and he said that they'd sort of revised it. I don't know that it's ever officially come before us to be
Well,
put
yeah,
forth as a revision. And then as they've had members, and I think there's been a lot of recruitment of members in the way old days. It was that people were brought before the select board and Joe had asked that we approve that they be put on the vision committee. But for example, when I was asked to join, I never appeared before the select board. I didn't.
I think
realize it was in that meeting.
I mean, it's a floating morpheus, I like that, but also if we're establishing precedent based on town council advice, the vision committee is not in the bylaws. Most every other major committee is described in the bylaws. So it didn't go in front of town meeting. I think we should tighten it up
I think that's a
and have
great
some
idea.
accountability.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great
I'll go
idea.
along with that.
Yeah, it may have. Been 6 or 7 years ago. They may, I think it was before Marie,
Yeah, it was already put together. before
Yeah.
I got.
and they may have at that time. Somewhat officially,
I'll look at some.
So what has to
Yeah.
be done concurrent to what Andy said, as far as that?
Well, they do minutes, they do.
Yeah, they
They
follow
do
them.
post their agendas,
They do.
so as far as when they were created, I'll look back and see, you're right, it's not in the bylaws, but let me see if
Yeah.
the board. I'll see what I can find.
I just,
Information wise.
because, well, they do have membership that seems to flow. Now, a committee, we just went through and nominated a whole bunch of people, or approved, appointed a whole bunch of people, positions and the historic commission and whatnot. So that's sort of that's, to me, that's the standard. And so a public body shouldn't be appointing their own members.
Mhm.
It should be part of the process. It should be clearly described. It should be part of the town. Whether it's bylaws or not, I mean, the historic commission is described in the bylaw. As is the town historian and numerous others. I've been sitting in my little office in my hammock reading the town bylaws.
And by the way, it's a matter of disclaimer. I appear at their meetings, but I am not on their committee. I am at their meeting as a formal liaison between us and them. So I hear what they say. I bring it back to us if there's any conflict or any questions or anything like that for them. I'll be.
I do detect when I talk to the members who I know and talk to, there is a sense of frustration that they have all this vision and it doesn't really go anywhere. And so possibly if they became a formal committee with some accountability, that would give the structure to perhaps ameliorate some of that frustration.
Yeah,
so Marie, maybe you could reach out to Joe and let him know we've had this
Yep.
discussion.
He said he tried to get on and he couldn't get on, but I don't know why, because other people.
Yeah,
marked that
who knows?
stuff. But I will let him know. He already asked me if I would send him the recording, so.
Okay. Okay, is that it for select board to speak for you, Andy?
That's me. Well, just one last thing. I commend to you the June report from the 8 Towns Board. It's posted on our website. Has description of essentially the, while I was in Paris, they had a meeting, they approved the assessment formulas. So, and also approved the educational subcommittee's report. So we are cruising towards a late June, July decision point for the board to put forward the final proposal for town meetings in the fall.
It's great. A lot of work. Okay, anything for you? No. Okay, nothing for me, so I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi,
And I'm not.
and why isn't the Michi's open tonight?
What, I'm sorry?
Why isn't the Michi's open tonight?
I think it's tomorrow, right?
I know. Oh, I go sign the warrants.
Okay.